Thank you for taking interest in this course. My name is Ernest Shaka. I'm the head of training at Hope Interlink. You've made a good decision to go with Hope Interlink for your career and professional growth. Having shown interest in this project management course, we have prepared a short and very useful introductory session to bring you up to speed on all that you need to know towards gaining a certification in project management. Please ensure you go through the entire session as I have a juicy offer for you at the end of the session. And I'm very positive that you will gain a lot after going through this. Thank you. Okay, so the objective of today's session is to help us have a fundamental knowledge on project management and to also help us to develop and maintain and know what it entails to maintain and develop a project. Also to apply outstanding project management techniques to generate, outstanding, investment in some of the projects we embark on, and to also understand the effectiveness of project management. Okay, so let's dive into what we have for today. Now, we're going to start from the project management framework itself and understanding what we mean by the project management environment. Now, every business starts out with a project. Many people don't know this, but every business starts out with a project. So if you're going to start out by creating a unique product or a unique service, that unique product or unique service you are beginning a business with is a project. A project is a temporary endeavor that you embark on to actualize a specific goal or objective. So whatever you are beginning with, every project, every organization begins with that project to ensure that they create a unique prototype or a unique service that they will need to mass produce to get into the hands of quite a number of people. So there are businesses that start out with the ultimate purpose of trying to make a profit. Some do start out with having to work with an agenda to make some form of impact or to make a difference. Whatever the objective is, the idea is that a service is what you're designed to render, or a product is what you're designed to create to provide some form of solution or to help meet a need. The creation of that solution or the creation of that product to help meet a need is a project. And if you are creating a unique prototype of a product, or you are establishing the service that you want to deliver to the population, that is a project. And if that is a project, it must be managed. And not just must it be managed, it must be managed professionally. So now, every business that starts out with the creation of that unique prototype, that unique product, it actually has the need for that product to be created in such a way that it achieves certain objectives. What are the objectives it must work towards actualizing? It means in managing the creation of a unique product, which is to provide some form of solution or to help meet a need. The objective of that project, which requires you to manage it, is to help manage the resources to actualize these very objectives. What are the objectives? To ensure you complete the project on time to meet a given deadline. It means you are working towards actualizing the completion of that project within a given time frame. So you are not behind schedule, but you're able to complete it on time ahead of schedule. The next objective for having to manage a project with all of the required resources, and when we talk about resources, you're talking about human resources, we are talking about material resources, equipment, money, and all of that. If you are working towards managing the resources to actualize these objectives, these are the objectives every project is being managed to actualize. So you're actually trying to manage your project to actualize these given objectives. First, like I mentioned, is to help you complete your project on time and to be able to complete it ahead of schedule. Next, you want to manage your project to be able to actualize this very objective, which is to complete the project within a given budget. It means you don't want to complete your project and exceed the budget, but either it is within the budget or under that particular budget. Now, the next objective is to complete the project within the given scope of what is required. It means you have boundaries of what you have set for yourself to actualize this project. Another very important objective is to ensure you complete this project to meet the required standard or meet the stakeholders' requirement. Now, these are the four major objectives that are highlighted in having to manage a project to ensure that your project is completed on time, within a given budget, and to ensure that you complete your project within the given scope, and also to fulfill all your stakeholders' requirements. This is very essential. And having to actualize this will help determine whether your project is going to be successful or not. Now, in having to complete the project, you must also work on ensuring that it is managed professionally. It means there's a set standard in the way you manage your project. And I'm going to explain that a little closely. But every business, like I said, starts out with establishing the delivery of a service to meet or a need or to solve a problem, or the creation of a unique product to actually address a need or to solve a problem. So if that is the objective of a business, of course, it wants to actualize something. So it means it starts out with a project. And that project, once that unique product has been created via your project, there's need to hand it over to a system that ensures that it continues the sustenance of a reproduction of that unique product or service. It means that unique product or service, which is standing as the prototype, has to be mass produced. That means that product needs to be mass produced in order for it to get into the hands of everybody. It means for you to spread it across the country, spread it across the globe, in order to ensure that the continual reproduction of that unique prototype which you've created via your project is sustained. It needs to be handed over into what is called a manufacturing system. So you have a manufacturing process or a production process. So a production process is the system that ensures the reproduction of the unique prototype that has been created via your project, which is either a unique service or a unique product to help meet a given need or to solve a particular problem. Now, the sustenance of this reproduction of this unique prototype created by your project is called an operations management system. Meaning, if an operations management system is to ensure there's a consistency, that means day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, you are continually involved in the reproduction via a production system or via a manufacturing system to ensure there's a continual reproduction of that product or a continual delivery of that service via what is called an operations management system. So an operations management system separates the business operation in such a way that it ensures the sustainability of the continual reproduction of that unique prototype created via your project. Now, once the operational system has taken effect and it's ensuring the continual reproduction of the prototype or the product created, I'm talking of that unique product created via your project, then you find out that the continual day in, day out reproduction or manufacturing of this product over time, it follows what is called a product life cycle. And what do we mean by a product life cycle? It means that product starts out with the point at which you need to launch that product into the market. That's the introduction of that product into the market. Now it gets to a point that the product now picks and people start purchasing it. That becomes, a period of maturity when the product's life starts, gaining recognition and people start buying it in mass. Now, after some time, it gets to a point of saturation in the market where so many people now have this singular product or have this particular service rendered to them. After some time, they get tired. They start looking for something new. They start looking for something different. They start looking for something that will address a different kind of need. So the saturation stage of the product's life leads to a decline. Eventually, the product's life starts coming down and winding down. People start, looking for alternatives. People start looking for something different, something new, something that is going to spark a different experience. And that is when the life of that product starts winding down. At the point at which the life of that product is winding down, the organization will, at this point, decide to launch and introduce a new product, which is a project. So in the introduction of a new product, which is either an innovation of that particular product, or a different type of that particular product, or a advanced type of that particular product is introduced. Once that is done, that is a project, and it must be managed as such. So you find out that you have the project, which is the beginning of the business, creation of a unique product or a service, and then it's handed over to an operations management system to ensure the continuous sustenance of the reproduction of that unique product created via your project. Now, once the operational system begins and it's ongoing, after some time, the product's life cycle starts getting to a point of maturity and saturation happens. Then a decline happens again. And once the decline happens, that is when the organization introduces a new product, which is a project. And that project, because the creation of that unique product they are introducing is another project, and it must also be managed as such. And if it needs to be managed, it needs to be managed by a project manager. Now, a project manager will need to manage the project to ensure that it meets these certain objectives. What are the objectives again? To ensure that it meets the objective of having to, be completed within a given budget, to be completed within the scope of a particular boundary, to be completed on time, and to be able to fulfill all that is required to meet the stakeholders' requirements. So it means that becomes the cycle that keeps happening. So you have a project introduced by the organization and handed over to an operations management system to continue the mass production of that unique product created. And once the product has been mass produced, and after some time it begins to lose relevance in the market, people start getting tired of it, then another project is introduced again, which needs to be managed by a project manager, and a new product is created and handed over to an operations management system again. And that cycle continues. It becomes a project, operations, project, operations, project. So that is what determines the continual existence of a business. Businesses that have failed to be able to ensure this balance of having to ensure there's a project management system that is put into effect to create a unique prototype or to deliver a particular service. If they do not, most businesses begin that way, but if they do not ensure that this balance exists, that means that there's a need to hand over to an operations system to ensure the sustenance or the continual reproduction of this. And then after some time, once the life is ending again, you introduce another project, and that ensures a revamp, a picking up of the collapsing business due to the life cycle of the product. So because businesses tend to make this mistake of tying the product they are producing to the business. So once the product's life begins to come down and wind down, you find out that businesses that don't understand when to introduce a project and a project management system to pick up the business again, to make it. And that's one of the things you notice organizations like Apple has done over the years. Apple has introduced continually different projects, and they interject those projects at different times when they notice the operational system and the product life cycle is ending. For example, we had the case whereby the iPod was introduced some years ago by Apple, and after the life of that product was winding down, they introduced the iPad, and then that was another project, and then it was handed over to operations for reproduction. Then they introduced, once that life or the life cycle of that product was winding down, they now introduced the iPhone, and then the iPhone was a new product and was a project, and then they handed it over to operations, and they began mass producing it. Then they introduced after that the iTunes. So you see that these are different projects that has kept this business continually relevant in the market and able to deliver continually services or products that the market needs. That's what continues the sustenance of the business, when you keep ensuring that this balance happens. But when a business stops at the point of operations, that business begins to wind down. Example of such businesses are the likes of, the Nitel of the yesteryear. So we talk about businesses that must ensure this balance. And once a business starts out with creating a unique product or service, we must understand that this product that is being created is a project, and it must be managed by a professional. So it means it must be managed by a project manager. No, so when we talk about it being managed by a project manager, there are a lot of project managers out there. So many project managers. So, but there's a difference between managing a project and managing a project professionally. What's the difference? For example, when many of you cook, you cook probably based on how you feel, based on what you think, based on assumptions, based on your state of mind. Many of us probably don't cook professionally. So there's a difference between the way you cook probably at home locally and the way a cook in Sheraton as a chef cooks. Now, when the chef in Sheraton cooks, he probably cooks professionally. So they are called professional cooks. Why? Because they don't cook based on intuition. They don't cook based on their state of mind. They don't cook based on assumption. They don't cook based on their mood. They cook based on a set standard, meaning they follow what is called a recipe. They follow what is called a cookbook. They follow a series of steps highlighted, a series of instructions, a process. And that process that they follow brings about consistency. It means that whenever they cook, they can produce the same outcome all the time. And if they are able to produce the same outcome all the time, that brings what is called predictability. And that is very key when it comes to professionalism. Professionalism is tied particularly to having to align with a set standard. So it means we are able to ensure that we're not just cooking based on how we feel or what we think. We cook based on a set standard way of cooking. So it means that I can be able to ensure that there's consistency across the group. It means if I follow a cookbook in the way I cook here in Nigeria, and if someone who's in Australia follow this same cookbook, capturing the same instructions, capturing the same steps, capturing the same processes, our outcome will be consistent. It means I can predict that if a Bolanle, for example, goes to Canada following the same cookbook I follow and is able to follow the same process, the same steps, our outcomes will be consistent. It means if Bolanle goes to Australia, I can predict that Bolanle's outcome will be consistent with mine. Why? Because Bolanle is following the same standard that I'm following, which is captured in a cookbook. But when many of us cook, we don't follow a set of instructions. We don't follow a process. We don't follow a set of steps. We just cook based on how we think. That's why there's inconsistency in the taste of our food. Today it might taste very salty. Another day it might, even if you get it right today, the possibility of achieving that same outcome the following day will be very slim. Why? Because you probably did not document how you captured this particular outcome, so you can't reproduce it. And if someone asks you, can you cook this same meal that you cooked just now? You say, well, let me try. But you probably might not achieve the exact result. Why? Because you didn't follow a set of instructions or steps or processes. You just cooked based on how you felt at the time or how it came to you. But that is what we call a lack of professionalism. So professionalism is having to align yourself with a set standard. So you don't just cook based on how you feel. You cook based on a set of instructions, a set of processes, and a set of steps highlighted and captured in a standard. called a cookbook, for example. Now let's apply that to project. So there's a non-governmental body, a non-for-profit, association that came up with a standard way to manage a project. Now, of course, they adopted an international standard. So there's an international standard way to manage a project by the International Standard Organization, ISO. So there's a standard way captured on how to manage a project. It's called the ISO 21500. It's called the ISO 21500. So if you are going to actually manage a project following a set standard, you want to align with that set standard. Now, so there's a body that set itself aside to say, let's certify project managers who manage a project based on a given standard. So we can be able to say that you are managing a project following this set standard. So it means whether you manage it in Nigeria, or you manage it in the UK, or you manage it in Australia, or you manage it in Canada, your outcome will be consistent with the outcome of the project manager here in Nigeria. So it means there's consistency across. It means whether you're in Canada, Australia, in the UK, in the US, your outcome will be consistent. It means I can predict that if Tunde goes to Canada to manage a project following the same standard that we follow here in Nigeria, his outcome will be consistent with ours. That means I can predict that there will be consistency. And it means that I can be able to dictate and say that Tunde will achieve the same consistent outcome that I'm achieving because I have achieved a standard way to manage a project. And this standard is what we call also best practice. It means the best kind of outcome you can achieve and acquire and get having managed the project following this set standard. It means any other person can achieve this best outcome as well, as long as they follow the same standard I am following here in Nigeria. And that standard is captured in, just like you have the professional cook having a cookbook, that same standard is also captured in a body of knowledge. Now, let's look at it. There are different bodies that certify you based on how you are able to align with this standard in the way you manage your project. So it's not enough to say, oh, I manage a project. There are a lot of people who manage projects out there, but many of them don't manage it professionally. So what distinguishes the different project managers is professionalism. That's the truth. What distinguishes the cook in Sheraton and you that cook at home is professionalism. Simple. That is why this program is called the Project Management Professional. The Project Management Professional Program, PMP, because the professionalism means you are tied to managing your project according to a given standard. So it means you are not just managing it based on how you think, what you feel, based on your intuition, based on your state of mind, based on your mood, based on your disposition. You are managing it based on a well-tested and proven set of techniques, tools, and processes that help achieve the best outcome ever. So it means if you are able to follow this same standard, you will get this same best outcome following these set tools, techniques, and processes. So that is what produces professionalism. So these bodies vary. There are different bodies that certify you, saying that you are a project management professional because you manage your project according to a set standard. So there are bodies that test to verify whether you have a good understanding of a standard way to manage a project. One of such bodies is called the Project Management Institute, PMI. PMI stands for the Project Management Institute, which is a non-for-profit membership association and the Project Management Certification and Standard Organization. And of course, the PMI actually came up with a body of knowledge we call the Project Management Body of Knowledge. Now, the Project Management Body of Knowledge is not really a methodology. Instead, it's the methodology that is the Project Management Body of Knowledge methodology is a framework of standards, conventions, processes, best practices, technologies, and guidelines that are accepted as the project management industry standards. So there are different other certifying bodies out there that certify people based on this standard way to manage a project. Another body is called the Prince 2. Many of us might have heard of the Prince 2. Now, the Prince 2 is actually an acronym that simply means projects, PR for projects, IN for in, C for controlled, E environments, and 2 for a second type of a certifying body that actually originated from the UK. But while the PMI originated from the US, that is where they originated from. The Prince 2 certifying body originated from the UK. But they are both certifying bodies that certify you based on a set standard. Now, when it comes to the method that they adopt, now we have methodologies. One of such a methodology is called the waterfall methodology. Another methodology, which is actually trending right now and very popular, is called the agile methodology. So it means in managing your project, you can either go about it following the agile methodology or what we call the waterfall methodology level. I want to help us understand what the basics and the fundamentals of project management entails. So when we talk about the project management methodologies, like the waterfall, this waterfall methodology is what the sixth. So we have the body of knowledge, the project management body of knowledge that captures what we call the processes that you want to align with to be able to manage a project. So there are processes. There are 49 of these processes that are grouped into 5 groups. If you manage your project, you are able to ensure you align with these processes to ensure consistency. So if you are able to align with this set of processes, you can ensure that you align with consistency. But when we talk about processes, it means you are saying you want to manage a project with a methodology called the waterfall. So the waterfall methodology is a methodology that is following a sequential step or series of processes that you follow in a sequence to arrive at a predictable outcome. Now, there's also another methodology called the agile methodology. Now, the agile methodology is low prescriptive. What do you mean by low prescriptive? It's not dictating that you must go about it this way, you must follow it this way. It's a flexible approach, flexible system that can help you manage projects that experiences changes very frequently in the scope. So when we come to the project management body of knowledge, the project management body of knowledge is like what a Bible is to a pastor, is what this book is to a project manager. So this project management body of knowledge is meant to guide you in the way you manage a project. Particularly for the 6th edition, is centered more around the waterfall methodology. It's centered around the waterfall methodology. But today, the Project Management Institute has the 7th edition of the project management body of knowledge, and is more principle-based than process-based. So it's important we come to understand that. I'm sure when we get to the full program, we'll get to understand that a bit more in details. So the project management body of knowledge is like, a guide that guides the way you manage it. So you're not following your intuition. You're not following your gut feel. You're not assuming. You know that if I follow this series of steps, this series of instructions, I put this input, I go about using this tool, this technique, I will get this predictable outcome. It means wherever I find myself, this outcome is what I will get. It means I can predict that if today is in Scotland, this is the outcome he will get. It will be consistent with my outcome because it's using the same tools, it's using the same techniques, and it's adopting the same inputs to arrive at the same outcome I am arriving at, because we are following the same processes in the way we manage our project. So the body of knowledge is like a guide to guide the way you manage a project, so that you don't follow your intuition or you don't assume these things. It means there's an already tested and proven best practice in the way you actually manage a project, following the given tools and techniques. So a guide is what this book is to the project management body of knowledge. It's a formal document that describes and establishes the norms, the methods, the processes, the practices in project management. Now, this is the standard for managing most projects most of the time in many types of industries. particularly if you are following what is called a waterfall methodology. So it describes the project management processes, tools, and techniques that are used to manage a project towards a successful outcome. Now, the project management body of knowledge guide adopts a process-based approach to the management of projects. When we talk about a process-based approach, remember, we're talking about something that is more related to the waterfall methodology. But if you are looking at the agile methodology aligns with a manifesto, which is hinged on a set of principles and a value system. It's hinged on 12 principles and 4 values. That is what the agile methodology is hinged or based upon. So in order to understand this, you will need to enroll for the full program in order to understand this a little bit closely. Like I said, there are other certifying bodies out there that can certify you based on this standard way to manage a project. One of such a certifying body, like I said, is the Prince2, which talks about, the prescriptive. It's a bit more prescriptive. Like I said, this certifying body originated from the UK. So what do we mean by Prince2 again? Is an acronym that means projects in a controlled environment, and it's more of a process-based project management methodology. So we also have Agile Prince2 now. So it means there are methodologies beyond the waterfall that have been adopted, like Agile, in these certifications. Okay, so when we talk about a project, remember, a project is really not about the size. It's not about the nature of the work to be done. It's not about the industry, because there are projects of different sizes. There are projects that last one day. There are projects that last 10 years. There are projects that are just organizing a birthday party is a project. You understand? Constructing a bridge is a project. Building a 7-story building is a project. Organizing an end of the year party in your office is a project. So it's not about the size. Projects vary in sizes. It's not about the nature of the work to be carried out. It could be a construction work. It could be a party or an event that you're organizing. It could be a software that you're developing. It's not about the nature of the work, because it varies. It's not about the industry. In short, project management cuts across different industries. People used to think project management is about construction. It's a misconception. Project management is not about construction. It cuts across different industries. It's a way you actually manage a project, ensuring you meet certain standards following a set of processes. And of course, if you are aligning with a set standard, you are trying to also achieve these very objectives, which I had highlighted earlier. No, so it's not about the industry, because there's projects in the entertainment industry, there's projects in the sports industry, there's projects in the construction industry, the education industry, different industries. For example, the project that involved having to establish electronic voting that we began as a country some years ago was a project. So projects vary in different sectors, in different industries. It's not even about the duration. Like I said, projects span from, there are projects of a day and there are projects of 20 years. It's not about the product or service to be delivered, because there are products that work more, you understand, with some methodologies. For example, you can be talking of handling a project that involves the development of a software, and you can be talking about the project that involves writing a book, and you can be talking about a project that involves organizing an event. You understand? So it's not about the product or service. It may differ from one project to the other. And so what is a project really about? It's a temporary endeavor that you embark on to actualize a given goal or objective. So what makes your example, for example, if you're actually talking about in your heart what a project is, what your example, if you're thinking of, okay, so is this a project, or so is this a project, what makes the example you're thinking in your heart qualify as a project really? Look at it. By definition, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So a project is an initiative that has the following characteristics. It has a specific purpose. Every project must have a specific purpose. It must create specific results. When I mean specific results, your project might differ from my project. Projects organized or managed by different project managers vary. Every project is unique. So it also has a definite start and a finish date. Every project must have a time frame. Now, the difference between project management and operations management is that operations is an ongoing activity. It's something that doesn't have a time frame. It's an ongoing thing. So you're doing it day in, day out, day in, and it's a repetitive thing that you're doing. But projects have different activities done at different times that may change over the span of a period of time. So it has a definite start date. It could also be progressively elaborated as more is learned about the project details. What do we mean by it could also be progressively elaborated? It means as you are starting out the project, you might not have all the details at the beginning. So, but you will start out and begin to fine tune it. You begin to tweak it as you go on. You might not have all the exact information you need. You might not have the exact details as regards its scope, its budget. You might not have exactly the details as regards how much it will cost, how long it will take, but you can actually assume those things. And then as you go on the project, you start fine-tuning it, you start perfecting it, you start tweaking it, and you start fleshing it out and getting more details to make it more precise and more accurate as you go on. So project management is really about the application of this body of knowledge. So it's not enough to have knowledge. There are people who are having this knowledge. So it's not enough to understand, or sorry, to have a knowledge of project management. So capture, remember, is a body of knowledge which guides, but it's not about having this knowledge. It's about the application of this knowledge. So project management is about the application of this body of knowledge captured in the project management body of knowledge guide, for example. So it's about the application of this knowledge, certain skills. What kind of skills? Leadership skills, team building skills, effective communication skills, and so on and so forth. So it's about the application of knowledge, skills, certain tools, like Microsoft project tools, for example, project management information, tools like, Jira and the likes. So you can utilize this tool. So project management involves the application of this knowledge, skills, tools, techniques. They are what we call information gathering techniques. Example of information gathering techniques are like brainstorming, Delphi technique, and Clifford Sleep techniques. And there are quite a number of them. So project management involves the application of knowledge, skills, tools, techniques to project-related activities to meet certain project requirements. So there are project requirements, and there are certain things that are required for you to actualize in a project. So this project management is accomplished through the application, the appropriate application and integration of the required 49 processes if you are aligning with a waterfall methodology. So the processes are captured in such a way that they are grouped into 5 groups. Now, what is project management again? It includes the identifying of what the project will require, determining realistic goals, managing all the limitations and constraints that you might have, adopting the various plans as needed to achieve the goals of the project, and also the stakeholders. So when it comes to managing a project management can actually start with the selection of the suitable processes associated with completing the work of the project. So it includes and involves using an established methodology. So what methodology are you actually utilizing to manage your project? It is very important that it's established from the beginning. If your project has historical data, it means it has records. This project has been done before. That means you want to adopt the waterfall methodology. Why? Because you have information and knowledge that you can acquire to help you be able to predict what will likely happen on the project. So it's called a predictable approach. But if you are embarking on a project that has never been done before, no one has ever attempted it before, you have no information as regards it, it means you're not too clear as regards how to go about it. It's preferable and advisable you adopt what is called the agile methodology. So the agile methodology are for projects whereby there are a lot of uncertainties. It means you are not too clear as regards how it will play out. Projects that it has never been done before, you are doing it for the first time. So you want to adopt what is called agile methodology to handle such projects. So a little bit about project management. Remember, it's having to align yourself with certain tools and techniques, imputing certain things, and being able to get a predictable outcome. So there are project management processes that you involve in. And if you are adopting the waterfall methodology, particularly if you are doing things like construction and all of that, you probably want to adopt the waterfall methodology to be able to manage your project. And it follows a series of processes. Remember, the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guides, particularly if it's the 6th edition you're following, captures 49 processes that have been grouped into 5. And, it's actually been applied to different areas of a project. So these project management processes are what you're really involved in as a project manager, the project management processes. So you have the technical aspect of a project. So if it's a construction project, for example, there are technical aspects which involve welding, tiling, carpentry. They are overseen by a manager that is involved in product-oriented processes. That's not the processes you are involved in, particularly as a project manager. Your processes are more project management processes, but the person involved in the technicality of the project. So you ask yourself, do I have to be a construction or civil engineer to manage a construction project? Not necessarily. Not really. Why? Because your work involves project management processes. So who manages the carpentry work, the electrical work, the plumbing work, the welding work? It's the civil engineer who's involved in product-oriented processes. That's not what you are really involved in. So that person is involved in the technicality of the work, while you are involved in the management of the resources, including the human resources, who involves the technical people like the civil engineer, the architect, the quantity surveyor. They are the human resources you are also managing, who are handling the technical aspect of the work. So you don't necessarily have to have the technical expertise to manage a project in a particular industry. What you are involved in is in the management of the resources, the human resources, the money, the materials, the equipment, and all of that to achieve certain objectives. What are the objectives again? There are 4 of them: to ensure you complete your project on time, within a given scope, and to ensure that you complete the project to fulfill the stakeholders' requirement, and to ensure that it's completed within a given budget. So your work is more on project management processes, and there are 49 of them, and they are grouped into 5 if you are aligning with the waterfall methodology. Remember, I keep mentioning that if you're aligning with the waterfall methodology, then it is process-based. It's more process-based. But if you are adopting Agile, then you are more aligning with principles, values. And then if you are actually looking at practicing Agile, then there are frameworks you need to actually utilize. One of such known popular framework is Scrum. It's the most known and popular framework that helps you express Agile. And Agile, remember, is more principled and it focuses on values. It has its values, 4 of them, and it focuses on 12 principles. So when we talk about the waterfall methodology, it's process-based. So it's 49 processes based on the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, particularly the 6th edition, and it's grouped into 5 groups. So you have initiating process groups, planning process groups, executing process groups, monitoring and controlling process groups, closing process groups. So these processes are applied to a project, and every project has different areas you need to have knowledge of. Every project has 10 areas you need to have knowledge of. If you are aligning with the waterfall methodology, you want to ensure that you understand this. If you are managing a project adopting this waterfall methodology, there are 49 processes grouped into 5, and they are applied to a project, and every project has 10 areas that you must have knowledge of. So these are the 10 areas you must have knowledge of. There's the integration management area, scope management area, schedule management area, procurement management area, stakeholder management area, risk management area, communication management area, resource management area, quality management area, cost management area. So these are the different areas you are applying these processes to. Remember, these 49 processes that have been grouped into 5. These are the various areas you can actually apply these processes to. So in applying these processes to them, remember, you must have knowledge, at least basic knowledge of all these areas. Now, as a project manager, you are actually having basic knowledge of all these areas, but there are specialists who have in-depth knowledge and advanced knowledge in these areas. There are people who specialize in these areas who have more advanced knowledge than you have. So it means they handle these areas in depth while they actually answer to you. So you manage the various specialists who manages the various areas of this project. But if it's a small project, you probably might be actually applying these processes to all these areas. You probably might be managing all these areas. But bottom line is that you must have basic knowledge of all these areas, and that is what this program will involve, having to look at all these areas one by one. Now, this is based, remember, on the 6th edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide. But on the 7th edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, it captures what is called the principles, and it focuses on 12 principles and 8 project performance domains. So if you are looking at the 7th edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, is based on 12 principles and 8 project performance domains. Now, if we're coming into the full course, we're going to tell you the difference between what is captured in the 6th edition and the 7th edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, and what's the difference between them, what informed, the change, and a lot of that. So, later on. So these processes are applied to different areas of a project. And these are the different areas every project has. Just like your body has different areas. Your body has an eye, your body has, the legs, the teeth, it has nose, it has, the stomach. Your body has different areas. And if you notice, there are different areas that a doctor has knowledge of. You understand? You don't have specialists who have in-depth knowledge and more advanced knowledge of a certain area of your body. So you have specialists also specialize in various areas of a project. So you have risk management professionals, you have quality management professionals, and so on and so forth. But for you are like a generalist, just like you have a general hospital and a general practitioner. You are more of a generalist. So you have general knowledge of all the various areas of a project. You know what is happening in all these various areas, and you must have knowledge of all these areas as they are actually playing out on a project. Very important. Now, the project management system is actually a set of procedures, tools, and techniques, processes, and methodologies that an individual project manager, like a project management office or company, can utilize in managing projects. Now, this system can be formal or informal in nature. So when we talk about the project management system, for you to be able to actually introduce these methodologies within an organization, you must first separate the operations management system from your project management system, because you have a project management system separate from an operations management system. Now, an operations management system is carried out in an operations management office. So also, you must have a project management office where you carry out a project management system. So if you are actually looking at deploying this methodology and this standard, it must be deployed from a project management office. What are you using to deploy this? A project management system. So a project management system is what I said, is a set of procedures, tools, and techniques, processes, and methodologies. What methodology are you adopting? Is it the waterfall? Is it the agile? That an individual project manager, project management office, like I said, or company can utilize in managing projects. This system can be formal or informal in nature. So the project management has a life cycle. So this project management processes follows a life cycle. And it means you are actually playing out these 49 processes within these groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing out of your project. So it's important you understand that the project management processes are deployed and it follows a project management life cycle, from initiating your project to coming up with a plan to implementing that plan via an execution, and then monitoring all that is going on in order to have control over your project, and then closing out your project. And these processes can be performed throughout the entire project, and they may even be applied phase by phase. So we also have a project life cycle. Now, the technical aspect, which is the welding, the plumbing, that is if it's a construction project, is actually the product-oriented processes, and it is deployed via what is called a project lifecycle. Now, this project lifecycle is the process of carrying out the project work itself. That is creating the project results. That is, if you are doing the carpentry work, the welding work, the plumbing work, all those technical aspects, if the project involves the construction of a building, that is what you'll be probably doing, the project lifecycle. That is what you to be involved in. Okay. So when we talk about the project management office, it's an organization or organizational entity that is assigned various responsibilities related to the centralized and coordinated management of your projects under its domain. So if you are managing a project, you want to ensure that it's managed from an office. It means you are deploying a project management system, adopting the right methodologies to be able to actually manage your project to ensure you align with a set standard. Good. So lastly, before we go, the organizational structure that you find your business in, or that you find a business in, will determine the influence it will have over the project that you're handling. So if you are actually creating a project management office, you are actually trying to deploy a project management system, it means that you must be conscious of the organizational structure that is predominant, that is actually ruling your business. That organizational structure will determine the influence over your project in terms of your authority level as a project manager. It will determine the access you have to access the resources that will help you manage your project. So there are different organizational structures that are predominant within a business that could also help determine whether you will be able to access all the necessary resources at any time you need it, or whether you'll be able to have the required authority to carry out this project and to be able to effect all that you need to effect as you deem fit. The organizational structure you are within that organization will determine this. And you must understand what organizational structure is running in this business. So you'll be able to know what level of authority and power and influence you have as a project manager over a given project. So the organizational environment within which a project is performed will definitely influence the project in terms of the culture, the style, and the structure of the organization, as well as the organization's project management maturity and systems will impact on your project success. Because organizations might mature over time in terms of managing a project. They mature. And when we talk about maturing, an organization could start out, with what is called a weak matrix. So there could be a functional organization. That means they are more operation based. But there could be a weak matrix. That means they are just starting to adopt projects and become project based. They could be balanced. Maybe they are like 50 operation, 50% project related. Strong matrix, projectized, on composite. So these are the 6 key types of organizational structure that is actually out there. So if you are having to start to a project management profession, and you want to actually deploy this body of knowledge and practice project management following this standard, you want to confirm what organizational structure is predominant within the organization you find yourself in. It will determine a lot of things, and these are the ways to be able to actually understand how to go about managing your project in the most appropriate way. So, welcome back. I trust the session was worth your while. Now that you have a foundational knowledge about project management, the next step is to attend our comprehensive and highly acclaimed 4 days project management certification preparatory class. This is my offer to you. If you register within the next 24 hours for our upcoming class, you will get a 30% discount. Yes, you heard me right, a 30% discount. Don't miss this. Thank you.